This is a corner house in Attard that seemed forgotten by the world until it was discovered by someone who saw something very, very different. Someone who saw the potential for this quiet, beautiful property to be transformed into the Parisien. And this is how it began.
The part I like most when it comes to restaurants is when you're creating it. So I went for a holiday in Paris and I saw this house which was exactly the same like the one in Attard. And I started imagining this house in Attard and with those nice burgundy canopies and the nice marble tables with the cane chairs, and I said, I think we need a French restaurant now in Malta. I think it would be perfect. I never imagined that Paris will inspire me to open a French restaurant. I was there and it happened. It was love at first sight.
After meeting Adolf 2 or 3 times, we started to appreciate where he wanted to go. So we could see that there was the personal thirst of success, of trying to create something on his own steam and making it happen. And then the French theme coming to life, something which I would say is not frequent, not present too much in Malta. We're full of Italians and we're full of now even Oriental cuisines, but the classic French style is lacking.
I think it's the right time to open a French restaurant right now. I wouldn't have done it 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. I think now is the time. Now I think that people are enjoying experimenting and seeing new places. It's not just the decor, the food has to be right, it has to be good.
My honest opinion about La Parisien, I think it's going to be a great success. That's another story to tell about Adolf. Like, where does he get his ideas from? You know, that's one thing. Right? First time he told me, oh, this house, you know. Until then, I never had noticed this house, you know. But he had the skill or the insight or foresight or dream to just go, that place, you know? And once he actually pointed it out, I'm like, wow.
One of the biggest hurdles at La Parisien was finding the location, choosing the right place for the life venture, and secondly, getting the permits, obviously, which takes time, and then make sure that the concept you're choosing makes sense for the place and they combine together.
The first thing is choosing the right site, the right location. That's the most important thing, both from a commercial point of view and even planning-wise. Basically, every stage has its own hiccups. To get a permit, they just think that you need to just sign an application form and submit it, and there you go, you get the permit. But it's not just about that. You have to prepare a lot of drawings, documents, so it's not easy, especially when it comes to commercial properties, to commercial permits. Adolf came to me with the location in mind, and he had already seen it once or twice, so he had a clear picture of what he wanted. It was very easy, because I could see his vision from the very beginning. I could clearly match his vision with the output. It's a beautiful house, it's a corner house. It was built in the 1960s.
The fact that there is so much activity around the place, the banks, the pharmacy, the school, this is a positive because people are not only passing by with their cars around the location, but people are also walking across this location, and it is always enticing to pop in and have something when you see a place which is nicely set up.
Adolf and the team he hired began working on the project in August 2017. After the proper permits were obtained, construction was started, and at the same time, the process of looking into the equipment, furniture, interior design, staff, and the selection for the menus.
It will take time. It will take a lot of pressure, a lot of patience, a lot of hard work and sweat until you get there. But you have to keep on pushing and pushing. If I stop pushing, then everyone stops. I have to be there in front. 4 to 5 weeks, we will be close to the opening. And I'm sure that in these 4 weeks, God knows what will happen.
A plan can only take you so far. Eventually, as the project takes off, everything and everyone needs to start working smoothly and to deadline. But making it all happen on time was going to prove more difficult than anyone could have imagined. Starting a restaurant takes a lot more than just a great idea. The entrepreneur spearheading the project needs to be truly hungry for success. A hunger that can drive them forward even when obstacles arise, and take on any challenge that comes their way in the pursuit of their dream.
In all cases, when you want to open a restaurant, there's always ifs and buts and things that will keep you up at night thinking. But that's what makes the place succeed at the end. Because if you're not thinking, it means that you're not doing it right. You have to focus, you have to know what you're doing. Even if you have a lot of experience, it's never enough. Each place will teach you something new. Never take a place for granted. That's the last thing you have to do.
The Parisien was never going to be an easy project to undertake. Instead of taking over a pre-existing restaurant or building a new restaurant from scratch, a stunning yet simple corner house had to undergo a huge transformation to become the French-themed cafe bistro that Adolf had envisioned.
Although we did a lot of structural alterations, we kept most of the important features of the house. The staircase, for example, is a very important feature. It's quite big, it's in the middle of the house, and that we kept. We decided to keep, obviously, because it's a pity to knock down such a staircase. And most of the columns we kept, which are very elaborate columns. Since the building is in a corner, the facade, which is close to the old town center, close to the church, we kept them the size they were originally. Whereas on the other side, which is facing the school and the chaotic side of Attard, there we opened bigger windows and doors to have more lighting and to have people walk in more. So there was a difference between the smaller facade and the bigger facade.
Sometimes if you have a new place, so it's being built to be a restaurant, it's easy because you know exactly how you're going to do it from the beginning. But when you take over an old house and you have to manage to fix it the way that it's functional, then it's a totally different story.
Like a perfectly prepared meal, the ingredients such as materials, equipment, furniture, interior decor, staff, and the construction itself needed to come together, and fast. But the team was facing major delays.
In a startup, the run-up to going live, the run-up to launching an activity is extremely exciting. It's a roller coaster, and there will be hiccups. There will be hiccups. The hiccups could come from a contractor, they could come from the lack of finding the right people to run the place. But I think that the will of the investor over here and the team around him is key, because most of the times the people do come together, they will find a solution to make sure that that live date is not delayed too long.
It's quite common here in Malta, in any project, to find delays with the work getting done.
You're taking out a lot of cash, a lot, and there's no income. So things will get tight at some point, and I know that. You have to think, you have to project. You're in construction, and at the same time you're doing accounts and you're doing menus. That everything has to be done, and everything has to be done as soon as possible. Time. It's all about time.
If you had to ask me that question, listen, you've got two choices. Project management in design, construction, etc., or being a chef, I'll go for the chef thing. It's hard, very hard. You're working, especially in an old, not a new build, an old house, you find a lot of new challenges, and it's always the same story. You always have a delay, constantly, always putting it back.
We would appreciate that once you start paying rent, once certain costs, once certain employment comes in, then there is no revenue if the place is not open. And so thinking out of the box, but thinking creatively on how you could capitalize on those moments to position the place, to market the place, to start creating enthusiasm around the place. These are all methods of how to try and ensure that that time is not totally lost if there are any delays in opening the place.
Pursuing a dream can be a lonely exercise. It's not always easy to find the support when you need it, or who you need it from.
This kind of project, it takes a lot of hard work, really hard work. You start, you don't know where it's going to end, how it's going to end. You get a lot of disappointments, especially from people that are close to you. You're alone.
I do think that honestly every entrepreneur has a lonely moment and has lonely moments, and I would not exclude Adolf from the list. Obviously each person's personal experiences then will determine how lonely one wants to remain. And I think that is the key part of getting out of that loneliness.
At the same time as overseeing the construction of the Parisien, it was also time to start looking into the team that would drive the brand forward.
When we are recruiting online, on Skype, you can't really feel the person, and that kills me, because I believe a lot that I feel people and I know who and what they are once I speak to them. And apart from that, I have to be responsible enough that once you'll make a person leave his country and come here, I have to be sure that I'm keeping him. I'm not just going to tell him after a couple of weeks, listen, you don't fit the place, go back to your country. It makes no sense. So maybe someone else would do it, but I won't.
The Parisien has to be a family. It has to move towards that aspect. It doesn't have to mean that these people need to go out and socialize at the end of the evening every day together, but from a mission point of view and from a goal point of view, if they are not family, then the place will crumble. We definitely have to make it happen.
As the Le Parisien family was coming together, Adolf turned his attention to two key focal points within the restaurant. The design and construction of the bar, which would form the heart of the ground floor, and then on the outside of the building, a grand Parisian-themed feature, which Adolf had designed himself, and which had been in his vision from the start.
The gate, now that I'm seeing it in reality, it's huge, it's amazing. Yes, I'm happy. I'm happy. I want to see it in place now. Next step.
No matter what obstacles had arisen, Adolf and his team were determined to make sure Le Parisien would be open by the start of the new year. Against the odds, their hunger to achieve success drove them forward.
When you dream, and you don't just dream, when you make it happen, when it's real then, and when you're done, and you leave everyone in there. You just go 5, 6, 7 meters away from the restaurant. You look at it and you say, I did this, you know? And you're alone there, and you realize that you managed to, after a year or two, you managed to make it happen. That's everything.
Que ce matin le soleil est un peu moins brillant. Serait-ce la fin des vacances, la fin de l'insouciance?
Against the clock and against the odds, in early January 2018, Adolf and his team finally opened Le Parisien's doors and welcomed their first guests. Much to the team's frustration, not everything inside of Le Parisien was completely ready.
Two days before we opened, I didn't even know that we're going to open. I kept on pushing to the last minute. I had to open. It's been going like the past 2 months. We're opening next week, delays each time. But finally we're there and we opened.
As time moved on, Adolf finally saw all the components of his vision for a beautiful cafe bistro coming to life. From the decor to the finishing touches and the equipment to the art. Like a carefully crafted puzzle, Le Parisien's character was taking shape.
From an interior design point of view, we are in line with this classic feel. We are in line because it also follows with the menu, it also follows with the type of style that we are trying to transmit to the people.
Looking at the place from the outside, it already gives you a nice feeling. Then once you go in, you see those nice chandeliers, the checkered floor, a nice big white bar with that nice black marble on top. Things went perfectly into each other. When it came to choosing sofas, chairs and all these things, I looked at something hard-wearing, not just cheap, normal furniture. People, they can feel that they're sitting on a real chair.
We designed chairs, tables and sofas. He chose the cloth, he chose the wood, he chose the stains. We visited the factory. We actually saw the items being made. Sofas are made out of solid wood. The wood is all dried wood, naturally dried wood. The attention to detail we saw is second to none. From the buttons to the way the drapes are affixed to the wood, it is literally stunning.
I'm very happy with the quality of the furniture and how things combined into each other. It's exactly how I expected it.
Catering equipment in a restaurant needs to be versatile and robust. Choosing the right catering equipment can make all the difference in the smooth running of the venue.
The first thing we had to consider was the space we have. It's not a big kitchen, but it's a positive thing because all the equipment needed when cooking, it's close to you. The design is good, the equipment is very strong and good. We did a good choice. I'm really happy.
Paris is a well-known and respected hub for famous artists. Incorporating art into Le Parisien was key to bringing a taste of the French capital to Malta.
I went back to a friend of mine. He's an artist, he's different. I like his way of painting and doing things. I think we got it right, and the staircase is the best place where to set up his paintings.
Art has always been an integral part of my thought process when looking at a brand. In the food and bev side, especially in the restaurant business, then there is an additional artist who is present in the place, and this is the kitchen, the chef. Besides art being an integral part of the decor of the place, for me the inspiration is also what is it that this chef is going to put on the plate. Where is that ingredient coming from? Who is the farmer who has grown that ingredient? Because each one of these people in the supply chain is an artist in his own self. So I would not limit myself to art as something on a wall or a sculpture.
This beautiful fusion of art and cuisine was working in harmony with Adolf and the chef's concept for the classical French menu.
French food is about tradition, is about respecting the process. Long cooking, right ingredients. We don't go for over fancy. We go for taste, we go for tradition. We stay classic in the recipes, we stay classic in the designing of the plates. The most important is looking good, tasting very good, and being very French traditional.
There's so much that people don't know about French cuisine, and most people tend to limit themselves to the few dishes or the few wines that they know about because they tend to be commercial, whereas what we are trying to do here is give a better representation of what French cuisine could look like.
I think that the Parisien not only will work as a themed restaurant, but I think it's also interesting to have a classical restaurant.
Classics are classics for a reason, because they are good. So we don't try to break the classics. It's like paying a tribute.
Adolf moved on from the food to consider the wines that would accompany the dishes. Unlike most restaurants in Malta, Le Parisien's wine list would feature 90% of its wines from France.
Choosing the wines, it wasn't easy. It took us a couple of months. It's 120 wines. We have a nice variety. It's French. We have 10% locals, and the rest is all French.
At long last, the day of the official launch arrived. The new team worked round the clock to ensure everything would be set up perfectly. From the food, to the selection of drinks, to preparing Le Parisien for the big moment. To Adolf, it wasn't really about the way the guests would react when they entered. To him, it was something else.
For me, it's their faces when they leave the place. That's when I know that they had an amazing evening. It's not when they arrive while they're here. It's when they leave. I look at their faces and I say yes, it was an amazing, successful event.
The event was indeed a success. After the guests were welcomed downstairs, Adolf gave a short speech, followed by the official cutting of the ribbon. From live entertainment to good food and wine, to original touches like the classic French car outside the entrance, everyone who joined Adolf expressed their delight to see Le Parisien finally open.
The food and bev sector has this magic in it that allows you to connect with a place or not connect with a place. And I think that it is very hard to list all the specifics that would make it memorable.
It was an experience. I enjoyed doing everything at the end, even when it was really bad, when it was really dark and heavy. Looking back now, it made me stronger, and this is most important.
Le Parisien's story does not end here. In the days and weeks to come, the Café Bistro and the new team running it would continue to take the brand into the future. A team that was used to setbacks, in the end, only made their connections stronger. From Adolf to the suppliers, to the friends, the staff, and the guests. Everyone has all played their part to watch and help the story of this simple corner house's wonderful transformation into the stunning restaurant that it is today.
We're finally here, we're open, and I have to admit it wasn't easy at all. But I can finally help people understand, feel, and taste what only Paris can give you. And that's what Le Parisien is all about.
Il me semble que ce matin le soleil est un peu moins brillant. Serait-ce la fin des vacances, la fin de l'insouciance?